everybody. Welcome to 500 Open Tabs. I'm Hannah Hillam.
And I'm Kaveh Taherian. And if you are watching this or listening to this, you probably are not here because of TikTok, because apparently we
immediately banned.
This is what we get for trying to engage with the young people. Also, I think it's funny that they were like, we're about to be banned. We're going to ban these idiots first.
Yeah. For saying, I don't even know what we said, but the first video we posted on there, we were banned. So, you know what? They don't want us, and I don't want them.
Yeah.
So,
although I don't know if we're like banned or flagged, but we've just been telling everybody. It's just more fun to say that we're banned because it sounds more controversial, and maybe we'll get more listeners because of that.
More street cred or whatever.
Yeah, too controversial for TikTok. I think the suspicion that we had when we were talking in our meeting with our friends that help us run the podcast is that it has to either do with the fact that you're constantly talking about dying and being buried in the ground, or I'm always referencing 9/11. So,
oh no, that's our personalities. What do they expect?
I don't know. I don't know what this TikTok bite dance thing wants, but apparently it's not 9/11 or being buried in the ground.
I refuse to use the term unalive, so I refuse. I just won't use it. That's what they want you to use.
Unalive? Is that like a technical term now, or is that just like a workaround?
The TikTok term. It's like they got unalived or whatever. Like they like some TikToker will be talking about murder, and it'll be like, and then they were unalived. And I'm like,
what do they call true crime?
I don't know.
Anyway, that was a really exciting update for this week. So in the meantime, since we're not on TikTok yet at the time that this is released, please, if you guys, I know we usually say this at the end, but we're going to say it up front. So if you know anybody that you think would enjoy this podcast, please share it with them. We're at that stage where we're trying to get as many people to know about it as possible, and we are relying on you, fair listener, to help us out. So please spread
human
the word.
Beings, not the algorithm.
Humans, exactly. Yeah. You are not an algorithm. You're a person with friends. I mean, not me, but maybe if you're listening to this,
hundreds of open tabs, just like us. A bot wouldn't have 100 open tabs. I'll tell you that much.
Yeah. Anyway, I believe last week.
Going?
Yeah. Did you? I guess you went first last week, so I think I'm up first.
Yeah, it's your turn. You're going to finish that story.
I'm going to finish the story. That's what we're here for. So today is part 2 of the rebuilding of the MacArthur maze. How much of it have you forgotten other than all of it since last week?
I haven't forgotten any of it.
Really?
Yeah. I thought about it a lot. You forgot. Okay.
I forgot.
Healthy.
I had to bust out the notes for part 2, and I was like, oh, shit, I got to go back and read my notes because I don't remember any of this.
No.
That's what happens when you cram for a show. Anyway.
Or when you just have whatever it
memory
is that you have, and same, whatever concoction.
Recap mostly for me this week. So
nice.
When we had last left off, the MacArthur maze was in shambles because a truck fell over in a freak gasoline fight accident and caused a giant ass fire that took down part of the 580 overpass. And Governor Arnold Schwarzenegger comes up and he asks for, RFPs from construction companies to get the job done as quickly as possible, with a $200,000 bonus for each day the project is completed under the proposed 50 by Caltrans. So remember, Caltrans had said it'll take them about 50 days to do it. Every day you do it faster than 50 days, we'll give you a $200,000 bonus. Our boy, C.C. Myers, with his Ocean's 11 crew of construction bros, vastly underbid everyone else. And he was like, 50 days? I'll do it in 25, bitch. He didn't say bitch, but probably.
I like to think he did.
Yeah, he's that kind of guy. And this, of course, sets them up to be completely reliant on the bonus in order to receive payment and not go millions of dollars into debt. And additionally, CC had agreed to share 25% of that bonus with Carl Douglas out in Arizona, who ran Stinger Welding and promised to get CC the steel he needed to complete the project.
Okay.
And I believe that's where we left off. He had just signed it and said, I'm going to do it in 25. So after, and remember, CC, the last thing I'll say is, remember, he's like this like tall tale of a guy. He's like 6'6". Oh, yeah. He's big. He grew up building bridges. Like he was, in more ways than one, he grew up building bridges.
Oh my
goodness.
That?
So
I do. That's like obituary level, like
wholesome.
Well, I don't know why I went to obituaries, but go on.
unalived. So basically, on that day, he signs the contract with the state and Caltrans in front of all those cameras. And Cece did what he loved the most and went straight to work. And he wasn't like, hold on, let me watch TikTok reels for 6 hours or get himself like a little salami as a treat. He's like, we got shit to do. We're going to get down to business. So
I envy that.
Yeah, right. First thing Cece does is that he calls up Carl at Stinger. Remember, that's the guy that sent him the proposal.
Arizona.
Correct. And he doesn't even say hello or like, hey, buddy, or like, guess what? We got it. He just picks up the phone and he calls him and he says, order the steel and get your shop drawings done immediately. And I like to think Carl is like mid-bite in a sandwich or something. He's like, oh, okay, first thing we need to do is like, I don't know, create like a Slack channel and maybe get something going on Microsoft Teams and like, you know, get something together. And then Cece's just like, this is quote, order the fucking steel. And then he says, we'll figure it out. And he just kind of like hangs up. And Carl is like, okay, shit, all right, well, whatever. So he's scrambling and he gets together his crew at Stinger and they start sketching away. And so shop drawings are the detailed working drawings that a fabricator will use to fabricate the steel. And usually this process takes weeks and weeks to get approved because government.
Yeah.
It's like getting the city to sign off on like, you know, if you're putting a second story on your house or like, you know, a mailbox or whatever it is that you got to do.
It takes so long.
I myself have always lived in apartments, so that's not something I've ever had to deal with. So I don't know, but I hear it's a pain in the ass.
Yeah. I know people who are trying to build houses right now, and it's like,
oh man,
it's taking years to like get anything approved.
I mean, just take that and then imagine you're trying to get like a public project done, like a bridge or like an overpass or something.
I feel like they'd have to fast track that. That's like different than someone adding on like an addition to their home. It's like people need to use this. So
that's true. And at this point too, it's choked up the entire East Bay being able to go into San Francisco. So a lot of red tape is essentially just like gone. And they're like, okay, it doesn't matter. Just get it done. I can't imagine it's basically going to be a big nightmare.
That area being somehow worse traffic wise. I can't imagine. I hate that area. It's bad.
A lot of everybody who lives there also hates that giant, interchange. But so the first thing Cece does after he calls Carl, he calls up Caltrans and he's like, here's what's going to happen. In 1 or 2 days, you're going to send 4 of your dudes out to the Stinger factory in Arizona, and you government eggheads are going to hash it out on site right then and there.
Whoa.
Instead of like waiting for them to send the drawings back and forth. And Caltrans is like, yeah, okay, I guess we can spend $79 on a round trip Southwest flight for these employees to go out because we're losing millions of dollars a day.
Right.
And so sure enough, they take like 4 of these guys that work for Caltrans and they fly them out to Arizona to Stinger. And they get there and Carl, in that meantime, in those couple of days, they had sketched all that shit up. They had figured out like what the rough plans were going to be that needed to be approved. And they all sat down and talked through, and I don't know, someone's like, you know, spilling a coffee over the papers, and they're like having a sandwich, whatever. They're shouting, they're like going back and forth and trying to make sure that he's like, it's got to be up to code. And he's just like, who cares about code? This is about getting the bridge done in time. They bicker. But basically, by the end of that first day, bada bing, bada boom, they sign off on it, and they were in business, taken care of, all in a day. Yeah, I mean, this is like a couple days after Cece had called them, and so they had a couple days to get the plans ready. But then the day that the Caltrans employees showed up, they basically were able to sign it off by the end of day.
Wow, that's
never
unheard of.
Unheard of,
yeah.
and
never
on any
happened.
level.
In any project, on any team of any sort of work. Yeah,
even like, without red tape or the government, things just don't get done that quickly.
No, I've never done anything that fast.
And so Carl, remember the head of Stinger, he's like drunk with power. He's like, hell yeah, the CC guy is the shit.
I follow him into battle.
Yeah, he's like, I get this guy. He's the man. He's like, I want to go meet him. So he flies out to the job site in Oakland and he goes to meet him. And CC gets out of the car. And remember, again, like I said, he's 6'6". And he's built like a linebacker. Like this guy's massive. He's not like 6'6", like some skinny kid, like Slender Man or something. He's like, I was a construction worker from the time I was like 12 or something. So he's like this huge burly dude. And I guess Carl is I don't know how tall he is or how big he is, but there are not articles written about how big Carl is.
No, Carl's a regular sized guy.
He's a regular sized human. So I guess he's just like, he gets out of the car and he's sort of like
anybody would.
CC.
Even someone who's 6 foot tall would be like, oh my goodness.
Massive
that dude's
guy.
Tall.
And and then CC is just sort of like, first thing he says to him, he says, "You sounded a lot taller on the phone."
No way. Did you make that up?
No, that's what he says. There's interviews with him where he talks about, yeah.
That's amazing.
And it's really funny. He's like, you sound a lot taller on the phone. And he's like, and also, I don't know that if I like you because you seem like you're better than me at getting things done quickly. He's poking fun at him. And
okay.
Carl, like I said, he's smaller and he's like kind of polite and like understated. But basically, like in his own sort of Carl way, he's just like, bitch, you met your match.
Let's do this.
Yeah. And so the both of them are like, did we just become best friends? Yup.
Yeah. Yeah, that's like an immediate bromance right there.
This perfect word. It's a total bromance. And they're like this odd couple of like this short, polite guy from Arizona and this giant burly dude from California being like, we're here to build bridges.
And take names.
Carl now has the approved plans and needs to figure out how to deliver Cece the steel that he needs. And typically custom order girders, if you remember girders, if you remember the whole explanation of like a table with ribs and a rib cage and sternum. So the girders are the ribs.
Yeah. I got to go to the girder farm and get more.
Get more ribs.
They're living beings.
Exactly.
As you told me last week. I love that idea.
They're usually made out of a single plate and shipped directly out from the plant, meaning what they'll do is you'll order girders from somewhere else. They'll cut them down and polish them and I don't know, whatever, like shape them and draw hearts on them and write locally sourced organic gluten-free steel or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But
they grass-fed, yeah.
Yeah, grass-fed steel girders.
Free range girders. They're really healthy. Like
and they have a story on the side. They're like, our story.
Yeah, we got into steel working back when my grandpa ran a small steel farm.
Yeah.
I don't know.
We thought, where's the heart in steel milling? We've lost that touch connection with it, so we wanted to do it individually in small batches.
And here is a picture of the little tiny farm where we grow our steel girders. And it's like some lady named like Lorraine. I don't know. It's always like some.
A steel plate named Lorraine. And that's the picture. That's the logo of the company.
Wait, they're owned by steel? Okay, never mind. I'm getting too into this lore. I'm imagining. Okay, wait. Okay,
it's
so
a
they
joke.
Get the
It's not a real thing that happens. That's usually what happens.
I know
that's usually what they would do.
I really love it. I want this to be real. Okay.
We can get into the steel business after this.
Okay. Should we?
But that process usually takes. We could. That process usually takes months and months.
Yeah.
And so Carl is like, we don't have time for that. So he decided to source the stock plate and just cut and weld it in his own shop, which is basically like, I'm not paying for delivery. I'm going to go to the store and pick up a take and bake pizza and I'm doing this shit myself. I ain't got time for all that fancy artisan crap.
That's insane.
So he orders steel from Pennsylvania and from Texas.
Hey, and Pennsylvania. Isn't that the same, like the steelworks where the dam exploded or whatever?
Yeah.
Cambria Steelworks. Look at me
there you go. Good job. You remembered it.
Thank you.
He was a huge fan of the Johnstown flood.
Loved it.
He probably would love this podcast. If anybody knows him, send this to Carl.
Yeah, Carl. Hey,
but I guess you got to get like a top part, a middle part, and a bottom part. So it's like the top and bottom parts are from Texas, I believe, and then the middle part is from Pennsylvania. So they get them delivered from those two different places, and the beams, they're about 68 feet long by 4 feet high. They're suspended from overhead bridge cranes on thick hoists with workers in overalls and gloves guiding them by hand who worked 24 hours a day in 2 shifts. Whoa. Everybody pulled overtime, and everybody, more importantly, was like, hell yes. Like, that's the funny thing about all the stories and like all the little things you can watch on it. Everyone's just like really excited to be doing this. They're all like loving it. No one's like, oh, I gotta work.
Is there like payment for everybody? Like, is it just like everyone's gonna get more money if they all finish this, right? They're all in it for that, or just they got really into it?
I think they like the idea that there was this challenge, number one, that you have this deadline, which we as ADHD people, as soon as you put a timer on it, we get all like, oh, I got to finish it and we got to get it done. And
we get insane. Yeah. I
think there's that element to it. I actually don't know what Carl's bid was for when he, no, he said, I think it was like $3, if I remember correctly, something like that.
I think it's $6.
$6, it was maybe $6 or $3 for the steel, but which was like not unreasonable. But then he said he wanted 25% of the bonus. So he's also reliant on them delivering it on time. I'm sorry. Carl is also reliant on Cece. So they all got to work together to get this bonus. Otherwise, everybody's pay gets docked. But I don't think that I'm not under the impression that the employees who are working for that company for Stinger are suddenly not going to get paid if they don't do it. I think they're going to get paid. I think either the business is going to go under and go into a bunch of debt or not. But again, there's a spirit of camaraderie. If I were working there, I'd be like, I don't want to work overtime if I'm not going to get more money for this. Yeah, I can't say for sure, but I don't think that was the case, because I think that probably would have come up in one of these articles. Yeah. Loyal. Wow. So they're going crazy. They're building their own, take and bake steel girders.
Bones and all.
And back at the site, Cece had his own set of problems to deal with. And his first concern was to stabilize the damaged columns that held up the overpass. Remember, these are the table legs.
Right.
And the concrete columns were protected by metal casings, which were scorched, but intact. However, inside, much of the concrete had cracked. So the way to think about this is it's basically like there's two gigantic boba straws with concrete boba inside.
Cute.
Which is what it feels like when I drink boba, because I always feel like I'm choking on something. But that's like sort of what these two. I don't like the tapioca on the inside. I like the mixture of the tea and whatever.
I don't think you're from the Bay Area then.
How dare you? I'm literally doing my second tab about the Bay Area.
I'm just kidding. What I mean is you're not from San Jose. San Jose is like boba capital of the world, I swear. Like, I can't go anywhere without seeing boba. Anyway.
Like I said, I like the tea, whatever mixtures.
The tea itself, I just don't
I don't like the... I just feel like I'm choked. I can't breathe, I feel like, when I'm sipping on those straws.
It's true, because they're barely big enough to fit.
Yeah. I just don't like that part of it.
Yeah. No, I get that.
And so those are the two columns. They're the two boba columns.
Yeah. You're making this delicious. You've used pizza. Want to eat it. You've used boba. Like, I'm really hungry.
Yeah, I'm always hungry. And next up, typical us. Next up was the bent cap, which, if you remember the bent cap, I ate.
I keep doing it. Please. Just kill me. Sorry, unalive me.
Unalive me.
TikTok. Sorry.
Jinx.
Sorry, Gen Z. Did you? All right. I'm not going to say anything else till you finish this.
No, it's okay. Next up was the bent cap, which, if you remember correctly, that is the sternum where the rib girders go inside of. And these things are massive slabs of concrete. And I guess when they had originally built these, they were poured in place on the job site, which means they had set up like all kinds of like crazy like scaffolding and rafters, and they had to like bring all this stuff in and pour it.
Right.
But originally, when you do that, that takes up like the entire area and blocks everything off. So you can't get anything else done while those things are being placed. It's like a giant Jello mold kind of. So
stop.
Basically,
I'm really hungry. Stop. Bringing Jello into this?
That was not intentional, I swear.
Okay.
I apologize.
So don't keep going.
So they said, so basically Cece's like, we don't have time for that, because that would require us to stop everything just to be able to do that at this time. And we still got to figure out what's happening with the table legs. And so he comes up with this idea. And the idea is he's going to make the bent cap off site and then get it trucked to the site. And this meant that while they're doing that, they could work on the columns and the bent cap simultaneously, because all the scaffolding and stuff wouldn't be going up. And upon further investigation, the columns, remember the boba straws, weren't actually even hundo dunzo.
You know what? I think I would have like passed a lot more classes if this is how people taught me. If it was like, okay, Hannah, you like boba, right? Like, yeah. Hundo, did you say Hundo Dunzo?
Hundo Dunzo, yeah. But you're still thinking about boba, which I like.
I am. Angela.
So basically, don't forget, so the straw is intact, but the boba, the tapioca concrete balls inside are busted. But not even all of them. Not all of them. So they're only down to about enough of them, but it's a problem. But basically they figured out, okay, we don't need to replace this. We don't need to gut all of this. So they basically just like scooped out the broken tapioca balls from the inside of the straw, which only had to go down about 8 feet or so. Until they reached where the concrete was solid.
I'm imagining right now. Yeah. Because remember we were talking about CC being massive, like Paul Bunyan? Just pictured him.
Paul Bunyan going around sipping boba concrete.
Yeah. This 40-foot dude being like, I'll get that for you. Anyway.
I honestly, again, I didn't even put those two together, but that's beautiful. So
here I am.
It's my great. Job, that's why I love doing the show with you. Yeah. Oh. So they replace it with the rest of the concrete boba, and then they just pipetted a bunch of, I don't know, black sesame bubble tea, and then bam, the original columns are salvaged.
Okay, good. Yay. I won't be able to drive into East Bay anymore without being like, there's boba in there.
You're just gonna be thinking about it. Unfortunately, this is not the end of the food metaphors. I guess I was hungry while I was writing this entire script, so just deal with it.
Keep going. I will.
So while they're doing that, the bent cap is being made. So in order to make the bent cap, to make the sternum, CC called up his old friend, Phil French, who ran a manufacturer of... Phil French is his name.
Phil French. All right.
Yeah. Who ran a manufacturer of big concrete structures called Confab California that was based out of Lathrop, which is about 60 miles east of San Francisco. You probably know Lathrop, right?
I've driven through it.
Yeah. Old Frenchie would build the bent cap at his work yard and haul it over to Oakland by truck.
Whoa.
But the plans needed to be approved by the state. So what happens? Once again, CC calls up Caltrans and he's just like, get your asses over to Lathrop and approve that shit on site.
ASAP. These poor workers are like, oh, okay.
I honestly, I feel like they're probably all stoked because they're like, I'm trapped in an office all day. They're like, now I get to fly out to Arizona and meet different people. Now I get to go to Lathrop. Like, it's fun.
It like cuts the bureaucracy too. I'm sure like, get me out of here. Yeah.
Yeah, they're probably all like, I think everybody's just like, I just shook my whole desk. I think everyone's just like, let's do this. It was not an earthquake happening while we recorded. The screen just like,
yeah. It could have been an earthquake. Chances are high.
Yeah, there was one yesterday.
What? Really?
Yeah, it was small. Yeah, there's earthquakes like every 5 days in Southern California. It's something huge.
So, how big was it?
I'm from California, so I didn't even get up to check.
Yeah. Every once in a while I'll check, but
yeah, it was probably like a 3-something. I don't know. Like,
yeah.
Whatever. I was like, you woke me up from my nap for this shit? I'm going back to sleep. I don't care.
I'm so jealous. I sleep through every earthquake.
It was like an afternoon because I got up anyway. Whatever. I'm going off on a tangent.
I'm also asking you questions, so
and I'm the one. I'll just engage.
Of course.
The Caltrans guy goes over there. Same thing. Bada bing, bada boom. Approved same day, and then they get to work.
Unbelievable.
And the 55-foot long structure was poured on Sunday, May 13th, and ready to be erected by Tuesday, 3 days ahead of schedule.
Ooh.
So again, everyone's moving fast as hell. And now they had to move a 244,000-pound piece of concrete some 60 miles to Oakland, which most roads would absolutely not be able to handle that much.
No, they crumble.
So what do? So old Frenchie, he calls his friend at Reeve Trucking in Stockton. Shout out to Stockton.
I love all of these people.
Yeah.
I already love whoever this is.
Yeah. And he's like, he calls up Reeve Trucking and he's like, this is a quote. He's like, we got to have a good driver. We got to have your best truck. And the owner of Reeve Trucking is Donnie Reeve, who used to be a driver himself, but he had gotten into running the business because he was just good at it. And he's like, he didn't have time to drive as much. And he's like, and so he's just like, don't you worry, Frenchie. I'm going to see to this delivery personally. And not only that, I'm going to use my own truck. Yeah.
Yes. He came out of retirement. I love it.
And not only that, he's like, I'm going to use my own truck. He's just like, I just imagine
I picture him like, oh, go on.
Yeah, no, go ahead. Yeah. You probably imagine the same thing that I did.
Like opening up his closet and looking at his old uniform, like his trucking thing. And I was just like, get the keys off the hook and, okay, old girl.
And he goes to the tree.
Let's do our last job.
And he like removes the tarp that's on top of it, and it's still like polished and beautiful. And like the camera's coming in, and like there's this like a sunset behind him, and he's just like, time to get to work. It's all awesome.
I feel like cheering.
Yeah, right. And they couldn't place the bent cap on the maze until the lower I-880 was closed for traffic, which is what they were doing every evening because they had to remember the I-80 is on the lower part, and then the part that's broken is the 580 that's on top. So the cars were still driving during the day through the part on the I-880.
The idea that you'd close any part of the 880 at all, ever, is insane to me.
They had to do it. They did it at night.
Road. I hate it. I hate that whole freeway.
So basically,
my least favorite.
They're during the day they're getting it ready, but then they had to wait until the evening to actually drive that thing over. Drive over the giant slab that's 244,000 pounds. And so at around 6 p.m., Reeve set off from Lathrop. Now, normally to get from Lathrop to Oakland, you drive the Altamont Pass over by where the 580 meets the 5, and also where the Hells Angels stabbed Rolling Stones fans, but that's a story for another day.
That's where?
Do you know that story?
Yeah, I know that story.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? All right.
Altamont Speedway. But that pass on the normal road that you would go on, it could not support that amount of weight. So they had to take the winding, steep Old Pass Road, which I tried looking it up. I couldn't exactly find where it was. But basically, it's like some winding, long, like country road that they had to take that was a pain in the ass and much harder to drive. And the bent cap was so big that it took 3 trailers attached to the rear of Reeve's truck to carry it. And the entire contraption, including the truck and all the extra trailers, had a total of 74 wheels.
That is so insane. Absurd. Okay.
And a team of CHP cars led the caravan, blocking off every intersection. And another CHP car was Reeves's pace car. And then came Reeve. Behind him was his son, Donnie Spike Jr., trailing in a second truck in case Reeves's own truck broke down.
Yes, it is. Of course, that's his name. Solid guy. I don't even know him.
This is the most ridiculous caravan. This is like bigger than a presidential caravan, essentially, like, or as big and as important.
Oh, yeah.
Reeve approached the incline at 55 miles an hour in 15th gear and needed to shift all the way down to 3rd gear and to slow down to about 14 miles an hour.
15th gear?
This is how trucks go. And he was really stressed because if he stalled, he wouldn't be able to get going again. And the whole thing would cause, hours and hours of delay and everybody would be pissed. Now, it's stressful enough driving stick shift without your dad screaming at you that you're giving it too much gas. But to add to this guy's stress, this is a huge story, right? Everybody in the Bay Area is like, what the hell is going on? So there's just like all these news helicopters that are following the whole thing like it's OJ on the 405, like trying to run away from the LAPD.
Rest in piss. That's amazing. That's amazing.
It's a straight paparazzi style. They're all like, now the truck's coming up onto it. Now he's going into 15th gear down to 4th. And he's just like, like he's just trying to do his job. All the news is following him. And
that's so much pressure. I would crack immediately. I'd be like, no. I can barely handle a backseat driver. If the news was watching me drive, I'd be out of there. No way.
So of course they have their radios, and the dispatcher reached Reeve on the radio and said, quote, Donnie, I hope you're not picking your nose because I'm watching you on the news. And he literally screams back. He goes, leave me alone.
Nuh-uh. That's like word for word?
That's a quote. Yeah, leave me alone. He just goes, leave me alone. Thankfully, Reeve eventually made it to Livermore, and he was able to relax because as you know, when you go on that stretch on the 580, the Livermore is when it starts to go literally downhill, not just that it gets easier, but it's no longer at the incline. Right. So then from there, they made it safely to the maze by about 8:15. And by then the columns were ready. Remember, the boba straws had been filled with their concrete boba. The sternum gets in, and they slapped that old chonky boy bent cap on top of it.
Yes.
And they did all the rivet screwing and blah, blah, blah. They had to adjust. And apparently the margin of error for these kinds of things is not much more than like a couple inches. But thankfully, so if you go into these stories, they'll be like, yeah, we didn't know if this was going to fit. And if it didn't fit, we would have to it would take
do
like
all
days
of
and
it
days.
again.
I mean, I don't know if they would have to redo the entire thing, but it was like they would have to figure out a bunch of ways to go around it. But thankfully, it sat correctly.
Okay, good. You know why they sat correctly? It's because they're professionals, all of them.
Exactly. After that, it was time for the girder ribs to be placed. Now, the plan was to place 2 every night until all 12 were set. And essentially what they were doing was they were driving them out as they were being completed from Stinger in Arizona in pairs of 2.
Right.
And they would get there sometimes as late as 1 a.m. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that first night when the bent cap arrived, it was like boom, 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 boom. So the boba straws were fixed, the girder went on. I'm sorry, then the bent cap went on, and then the first 2 girders went in. So Cece is like this master of just like figuring out how to time all this shit to like land correctly and like all go like one after the other. And additionally, they all have to make sure that they're finished by, I think, like 8:30 in the next morning so that they could open it up for traffic to go through. So they can't like sit there and work all night.
Wow.
So they do this and it's going smoothly. So, every day there's 2 girders coming in. They, sit and screw them on and slide them in and whatever, double check it. This goes on until May 16th when the last 4 girders were scheduled to arrive.
It's like only a week later.
Yeah, it's all done fast as shit. And they had originally been scheduled to arrive earlier in the day because they were like ahead of schedule. But on the drive up, the truck that was coming from Arizona had not 1 tire blowout, but 2 separate ones.
Oh no. Oh no.
And that's not like a thing where like AAA shows up and switches out your tire and then like leaves within 40 minutes. It's a whole deal. But basically it was a disaster. And apparently like at that time, even CC himself was kind of freaking out because that was the first time that he started to show signs of being like, oh shit.
Because any day lost is a loss of money. And
at this point, right. Yeah. There's no margin of error. So every day that everything would come one day later, it's literally costing him $200,000.
This is insane.
And so basically the truck figures it out. It fixes the flat tires. And like by the end, it was traveling at like 85 miles an hour down the 580 or whatever. And it arrives at 3:45 a.m., which is even later than it's been getting there before. And so, they're all just like scrambling and they're like, and they're going ape shit and they're like screwing in rivets and da-da-da-da-da. So legend has it, they basically finished setting the last 2 girders by like 8:29 a.m. or something, like just like in the nick of time in order to like have everything open back up. And they basically, again, lots of margins of error. Miraculously, there's none. It's all fine. So once all the girders are set, then they put, I forget what they're called. They're not coils, but they're different rods that go in a different direction.
Okay.
So it's sort of, it's sorry to use another food metaphor, but like it turns into another like lasagna thing where they're like, okay, now we have the girders and now we're going to put like broccoli and the cheese on this direction and then another layer of this thing. So then it becomes lasagna flesh for this table that's got ribs inside.
I'm glad you added flesh. I'm glad you added flesh because it made it way less like I didn't want to eat that at all. I'm good. Thank you. I do all lasagna, but not if it's flesh. So
the last part of the process was pouring the concrete, which jobs without a rush typically used. So I looked into this a little bit. There's a whole, as you could imagine, there's all kinds of like just getting the concrete mix correct. And then there's this many pounds that you need to use and this much of this getting mixed with this gives you, it's like anything else. It's like making molds. And so concrete is the same thing. And it could just get even crazier because you're trying to create like a thing that, 1 billion cars will drive over the course of whatever, 50 years.
It's life,
so it's hardcore. And they're usually, if it's not like in a rush job, it could take as much as like 28 days to cure whatever mixture that they want to use to put in for something of this magnitude. But of course, Myers only has a week. Sorry, CC. I was using Myers last episode and you were getting confused. So I wanted to make sure CC is the easier thing for you to follow. So CC only had like a week. So he went with what they call a hot concrete, which is a high-strength, rapid-drying concoction. And
Whoa.
that costs 4 times as much as the regular blend.
No.
So he had to spend quadruple the regular concrete budget.
Wow, that's a big bet.
On May 24th, 17 days after CC won the bid, the road was ready to open. Guardrails were assembled, traffic lines painted. Arnold came back, and they had a big running cut. Remember, Arnold Schwarzenegger was the governor. They had a ribbon cutting ceremony, and it was done. He did it in time.
Way.
And this is my favorite quote from one of the Caltrans guys. Real quick, you can ask me questions after this. Let me just so I can finish it out. Yes. So one of the Caltrans guys, he was one of the people that was in charge of it. He's like, this is a paraphrase, but he says normally you get when people see that you're like a Caltrans employee, like working on the side of the road on something, he says, normally you get a single-digit salute when people see us, but when you're working on a freeway project. But in this case, people were honking and giving us a very different single-digit salute, and they were giving us a thumbs up. He's like, so that was really nice.
It was nice not to be abused by people. Yeah.
People were like, government's awesome. You guys did a great job. Hell yeah, this is cool as shit.
Yeah.
And so everybody was hyped. So they delivered it in time.
That's okay. Here's the weird thing is that we're almost at the anniversary of that. This episode's coming out the 29th, and when they finished was the 24th, right?
That's true. You're right. Yeah. This would have just celebrated the anniversary of it. Happy MacArthur Maze incident anniversary. That's true.
So they finished it on time. What was the date they originally promised? Was it that date?
He said, I think 17 days is even faster than he said that he was going to do it. Because also there was a cap.
Is it 25 days?
25 originally, but there was a cap to how many. I think it was like $200,000 a day until you get to $5 million, like whichever one you do. And they were like, whatever, it doesn't make a difference. Just do it. We're already fast. But the goal that he had set for himself was to get it done before Memorial Day, because he was like, it's going to be crazy. Like people are going to want to drive in and out of the city. Like people are going to want to get on the road. So he's like, that was another quote he said. He's like, the people of the Bay Area have suffered enough. He's like, we need to just do this shit and get it ready. Man of the people.
Yeah, what
so he got paid his $5
like?
million. Oh, here, I pulled up pictures. Sorry, I forgot to text them to you. I got really excited.
Okay.
I mean, what's also funny is that he like dwarfs Arnold Schwarzenegger. Schwarzenegger's like standing behind him.
This guy's unreal. Yeah, Schwarzenegger looks like a teenager next to him.
He does.
I love this man.
He's a good dude. So he got his $5 million. He paid out Carl the 25% bonus, and he continued to be a legend until his passing, which was this year on Valentine's Day at the age of 85. Okay.
That's a good age.
It wasn't age. It doesn't seem like it was like any kind of tragic thing. I think he was just like, time for me to go. I'm a legend. Time to go be a legend in the next life.
I got to go build some awesome bridges somewhere else.
Yeah.
No.
But he was, so
rest in peace.
Rest in peace for sure. Also, I think it's really funny that he chose to die on Valentine's Day, which I imagine that he chose because he was sort of this legend. He was just sort of like, I'm going to do it today.
Oh, yeah, look at that. California construction giant C.C. Lyons dies. Wow. Legend right there.
So like I said, there was the Popular Mechanics article was the original source material that I'd found. There's some SF Gate articles that you can go search. But if you go on YouTube, there's a short documentary called Amazing, the Rebuilding of the MacArthur Maze, which I can link to as well. And like they interview him, and you can see him, and he sort of has this, he's exactly what you imagine him to be, like in a fun way.
Yeah.
And he's got this like booming voice, and he's just like,
of course.
Yep, I told him, order the steel.
He really is like a legend, like big, larger than life. What a cool dude.
And he's a cool guy. And I remember, I think I don't remember. I think I said this in the last episode when we were talking about, but like this was a huge deal. I remember it was like a point of pride for a lot of people, and it was a big deal when it happened, and it was like and people were like, "What? It got done so fast!" Like we were all like in disbelief that it happened as quickly as it did.
Because that never happens. Never.
Yeah. I also liked that it was something that went across state lines. It wasn't like these kinds of stories. I feel like you hear less and less, but it's like,
Yeah.
oh, cool, this guy in Arizona, he's like helped us out. Oh, one more thing. I loved this part of it too. One more little wholesome thing. If you look at the girders being delivered from Arizona, there's like, they wrote a note on the side and it said, to the people of Oakland from Stinger, with like hearts on it and stuff. They still have to like,
so nice. Why does that make me want to cry? Oh, this is
I mean, they
wholesome,
still had to
dude.
like whatever, like wax it and like, I think it's like underneath all the different coatings and stuff, but I just thought that was,
Still,
it was cool. Like they were rooting for us, you know, they were rooting
like,
for this project.
we're doing
and
this. We're helping you. We're going to get this
Yeah.
done. See, this kind
The
of thing
spirit
is
of
awesome because
camaraderie.
like we have this kind of like that like pride and infrastructure used to be something we were really into as a country, and it's gone now because we all hate everything, and the magic has been taken out of it, obviously.
Yeah.
But not this. This is awesome. This is like the working class hero.
They all seemed like they were just like really just, they loved it. Like the thing I kept reading and there in that video, the documentary, they talked about his reputation, of Cece's reputation. She's like one person from Caltrans, and she says something to the effect of like, he was known for getting all these different companies and vendors. Like he had a good reputation amongst them because everybody was like, oh, this guy's will work for him. Like he'll deliver. And they were like,
That
he
says
likes
a
what he's
lot.
doing and he's really excited about, and people just like, they knew that it was going to be a huge pain in the ass and it was going to be crazy, but like he was working just as hard as everybody else and he was really excited to be doing it. It wasn't like he was trying to cut corners and skimp somebody out of money and do it for less. It was like he knew that it took
says a
money
lot
to be able to
about
deliver that.
His character too, like
Yeah.
he can go and like get all these people on board. Anyway, what a cool story. Thank you.
Bro.
What?
Cool story, bro.
Oh, I was like, why are you calling me that? Just kidding. You always call me that. Sorry,
Anyway,
let me say it
that's
again.
my tab.
Cool story, bro. Thank you.
Yeah, that's my tab.
What a-
And now every time you drive the 580, you can think of a sentient table with concrete boba running through its veins with lasagna flesh and a steel rib cage and a concrete sternum that weighs 250,000 pounds that was delivered by a truck driver that came out of retirement and was followed by news helicopters as he did it.
What were we saying earlier? That it's like farm fresh. No, wait.
Yeah, farm to
Free
table
range
steel.
I really appreciate the disgusting, beautiful imagery you did with this one. And all I want to see is a movie of this. That's all I want.
I think you just did in your head.
Yet it was filled with giant rib cages.
That's the movie I would direct if I made it.
Yeah.
And then at the end, after Memorial Day, it got up and became sentient and went on a rampage. I don't know, drinking water.
Absolutely flattened the air. Oh, yeah, or just that, yeah.
I like to think that in the kind of stories, the science fiction stories I write, it doesn't come out and like murder people. It just comes out and is like, man, I'm really thirsty. They're very innocuous. I always think that's more
They're like,
funny.
oh, I'm hungry. I'm going to go eat some grass. I'm going to go drink some water out of the bay, the gross, gross bay.
Yeah.
Aw.
Hello, friends. Hannah and I would like to ask you for help, so hold on to your butts. All you have to do is go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and sign up for Nebula, where they have exclusives like Jurassic Park Turns 30 from my former musical splitting co-host, Lindsay Ellis. In this video, Lindsay deep dives into Steven Spielberg's classic by breaking down the movie, the book, its impact on culture, and whether life truly finds a way. Like many kids who came of age in the 90s, Jurassic Park was my absolute jam. So combining that with Lindsay's video essay skills made me feel more at home than Dr. Ellie Sattler, elbow deep in a giant pile of Triceratops doo-doo. You can find this video and dozens of other high production originals on Nebula, a video streaming platform built by and for creators. And of course, I'm contractually obligated to tell you that subscribers get a special feed to listen to this show ad-free, spared no expense. But even if you could, perhaps you should stop to think if you should. Go to nebula.tv/500opentabs and get 40% off an annual subscription. By signing up, you can support other creators like Maggie Mayfish, Princess Weeks, and many more. Remember, sign up at nebula.tv/500opentabs. Otherwise, Hannah and I will be consumed whole by a gigantic T-Rex while we're on the can, thus denying us our lifelong dreams of being buried in the bog.
Thanks for the story, though. It was awesome. It was wholesome.
Thank you.
You always deliver some good, wholesome stories, and I don't.
The yin and the yang. It's the those are our two options.
Yeah. There are no between. Although I am doing a pretty wholesome one today. So
Sweet. What do you got?
Everybody's in luck. So yeah, my tab is interesting because this is the first time I've ever gone off of one of yours that you've already talked about. Yeah.
That's exciting.
Yeah. So I kind of texted you about this a little bit, but I was looking for when you talked about the Latham brothers in the episode with the
Yeah. Hell yeah.
what is it? The Latham Loop, you know, those two degenerates who
No, they're the Latham Bros.
The Latham Bros and their way cool chemist dad, Woodville Latham, is that his name? Anyway.
Yep, that's correct.
They were responsible for they were some of the first directors of any film, it being those ones of the fighters, the
boxing
boxers.
match, yeah.
Yeah, and they were those guys who I don't know, drank themselves to death or something. But I got obsessed because I was like, there's nothing about these guys anywhere. It only talks about their dad and then them being like, we run this place. We're gonna direct this film, and we're gonna do a bunch of drugs, and we're gonna die young. And I was like,
awesome.
one of my favorite things.
What
to
more
do
do you need written about you? To be honest,
I wanted to know how they died. Because
okay, how they were unalived.
How they were. Sorry, my bad. I'm sorry, Gen Z. Please, don't unalive me. I need out how they were unalived, and it turned into a giant deep dive into death records.
Nice.
I almost requested
Whoa.
documents from the state of New York because I was that insane, but I didn't because. Okay, so this is going to be a little nuts. So the Latham brothers.
Love it. I wish I had popcorn.
I want popcorn so bad.
I wish I had lasagna flesh to eat right now.
I haven't eaten anything today. Right, so I was looking at the Latham brothers. I was like, how'd they die? And I saw Gray Latham, the older one, and I saw that he had gotten married. And I was like, oh, who'd he marry? Maybe someone married him? And I looked and I thought I saw her name, and her name is Rose O'Neill. And I was like, that sounds familiar. And so, of course, I click on Rose O'Neill. Of course, I know who Rose O'Neill is. She was the first published female cartoonist in America.
What?
Yeah.
Sorry, I screamed. I got really excited.
Our degenerate boy here married one of the most influential women in cartooning.
Because he's bro as shit.
No.
Oh, no. He sucked?
He sucked.
Oh.
So
that's
this
such a
isn't even...
What does he say in Futurama? He's like, you raised my hopes and dashed them quite expertly, madam.
I just did that to you. So Gray Latham, he's a footnote in her life. It's really sad. He's barely mentioned. So this is going to be about Rose O'Neill, the first published female cartoonist and ex-wife of one of the Laters that we talked about in episode 15. 14. Shoot, I don't remember. Do you remember?
Which episode it was?
Yeah, it was a 14.
I don't remember anything. I don't even know what episode this is.
It's 19. Somehow I know. Okay, so we're going to start at the beginning. And the article I took this from is from historyofillustration.com, and it's just titled Rose O'Neill. So Rose O'Neill, sometimes written Rose O'Neill Latham, she was born in 1874 in Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. And her dad was this kind of eccentric, again, with these eccentric dudes who like raised these really powerhouse daughters. But he was a bookseller, and he was like obsessed with like reading and plays and art. He had a ton of figure drawing books. He had a ton of art books. He had mythology. He was a bookseller, which failed. He definitely failed. Like his book selling business went tanked. Super.
He was not the Jeff Bezos of his day.
He was not. He wasn't, because he had a soul and a heart.
Oh, right.
So they lived in Pennsylvania until his book business failed, and then they moved by covered wagon to Nebraska, which is funny because at the same exact time,
how many people died of dysentery on the way is my first question.
0. But at the same time, my ancestors were also moving by covered wagon to Nebraska. So that was a weird
Another
thing
connection.
as well. They moved to Nebraska onto a farm, and her dad's like, I have a good idea. I'm going to be a farmer, and then I'll have all the time in the world to get into the arts and like books and stuff. Didn't
Right,
realize
because farming famously requires no effort. Farmers,
took up
some of the least hardworking, some of the people who have the least amount to do ever. You just sit back and you watch the crop grow naturally on its own without doing any work.
Have the cows pick it. I don't know what he thought. Get to put the cows to work.
Let's sit in that phrase for a second. I'm gonna become a farmer, so I gotta have a lot of free time on my hands.
This man was an idealist, and he soon finds that he spends every waking moment farming, of course.
Yes.
And so, but he has to support his family, and his wife is also working. She's a teacher, which is odd for the time. Usually teachers were young, single, unmarried women, but this woman was like, okay, we both got to work, and also I like working. So she grew up seeing her parents both working, and her dad being like, keep drawing, here's some more books, read Shakespeare, let's talk about it, let's go to the theater. Like he was extremely obsessed with like getting his kids into the arts, because that's all he wanted to do. And so he kind of didn't like put it on them, but he completely paved the way for all of his kids to be into it. So
nice.
Rose O'Neill starts drawing when she's 3 years old, and she doesn't stop drawing for the rest of her life. This girl, you have no idea. Just wait. She's us. Okay. So she couldn't be stopped. She didn't stop. She never stopped drawing. She never stopped painting. You give her anything, and she would just create something with it. And she loved mythology. Her favorite books to read were like Greek mythology and like seeing the illustrations in Homer's books and stuff. And when she was 13, she submitted a drawing to the newspaper for like a kids drawing contest, and she wins. The entry was so good that the editor was like, there's no way a 13-year-old girl did this. Like, I kind of think she copied someone. And so they win and sit her down and say, draw. And she just blows them all away by on the spot whipping something out. And they were like, wow, you are really good, like scary good. So she starts getting these jobs drawing for these newspapers when she's like 15. So
I thought you said she's like us. She's getting jobs. I don't understand. What is that like?
It was back in the day. There used to be.
People are hiring her. She's making money. I can't relate to this, Hannah. What is the point of this?
There used to be jobs, and there's like these things called like newspapers and stuff, and like your art, and I know. I don't really even know what it means because there's no algorithm telling people what to watch and look at and like. And anyway, so even at the time, it was weird that she was getting these jobs. Like, her family was like, whoa, all right, can you help us? And so she started supporting her family. Around the age of 17, this handsome, young, rich Virginian boy named Gray Latham shows up in Omaha. And she's like, I like this guy. He's hot. And he's really easy to talk to. And, you know, he's a wheeler and a dealer. And he's a flirt. And he's charismatic. And he's hot. And anyway, they kept saying that, or like, he was handsome, and it's like, okay, chill. He was fine. And she kind of falls in love with him, and they start writing letters back and forth. He's in New York at this time, working at the Panopticon, where he was showcasing all those movies of the fighters.
Yeah.
So he's writing to a 17-year-old in Nebraska while he's doing that.
How old is he again at this time?
He's like 26. Okay. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not great. He's also debauching. I don't know. He's not like true to her, but they write back and forth. And Rose is definitely kind of tomboyish. So she's never liked corsets. She's never liked dressing like the rest of the girls. And she starts to just lean heavily into being like, no more corsets. I hate this. No more putting my hair up. I'm leaving it down and long and flowy like a Greek goddess. And she starts dressing really like loose, like flowy, beautiful robes. And this is when she's like 19. And she's already kind of like sticking out like a sore thumb. And when she finishes school, she moves to New York at the age of 19, which again, for the 1890s is extremely rare for a young woman who's single to move out on her own. her hope was to become an illustrator, like all the ones she'd seen.
Yeah, she had watched Sex and the City, and she was like, "Listen, I'm gonna be I'm like Miranda. The Carrie of my, I'm the Carrie of my friend group. I'm gonna go to New York and make it.
I'm gonna make it, and I'm gonna go to New York. I don't know what that show's about. Is it just about Sex and the City?
In the city, yeah, obviously.
Good for them. I saw the movie once, and I was like, What's happening? I should know this. Never seen the show. Anyway." Yeah, she moves to New York, and she's still like starting to see Gray again, Gray Latham, and they're like kind of hanging out, and she's living with nuns, and because she's Irish Catholic, so she was raised...
now it sounds like Sound of Music. Actually, is probably closer to what this is.
But these nuns are dope. They were like, "You're really good at drawing. We should get you some jobs," and so they start like accompanying her to publishers.
So that's the secret. I just need to go to a covenant so I can get more work.
Yes, and have those nuns take you to publishing companies.
Who's going to say no to a nun? If your nun came into the office and they were like, you need to hire this guy or God will, I don't know, like ruin your life.
Oh, yeah, ruin your life, unalive you. I forgot to mention, on her way to New York, she stops by the Chicago World's Fair, the World Expo 1893, where literally everything happened.
And everyone got murdered. What's his name?
Yes.
Dude, I'm drawing a blank.
Henry something.
H.H. Holmes.
H.H. Holmes, yeah. She goes to Chicago with these nuns who they like go around. Literally everyone's at this fair. Like Edison is there. All the artists you can think of were there. And this place was like, they had built this giant white city that looked like Grecian. And it was amazing. I mean, it was all made of like cardboard. I mean, not cardboard, but like cheap stuff.
Did you ever read Devil in the White City or whatever it is?
No, should I have?
That's the one about H.H. Holmes. It's like it's a true crime book, or it's parroted as like a true crime book, but half of the book is literally about the process of building the Chicago World's Fair. It gets super into the weeds about the process of building it, to the point where they're like, this is the kind of like bog that's around this area that doesn't support the weight of this like steel structure and da 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 da.
They talking about bogs in there?
Talking about bogs in there and stuff, and how they like go overseas to learn about like different grass and steel. I don't know. Anyway, it's very involved.
You just sold me. You just sold me on that book. That's all I want to know about. Anyway, so the Chicago World Expo, I'm kind of become obsessed with. I've opened so many more tabs, but that can be a whole other 18 episodes for later. I would love to just
I'll just say real quick, I would assume that you would have been like, I'm surprised that you are just now getting into it. That seems like something you would have been fully into already.
Right. I think that I got blinded by the murderer, the serial killer.
Again, that's the thing that I would assume that you would have been super into as well.
Oh, I was into that. Look, H.H. Holmes' old news. I know everything about him already. But
okay, good. So you do know some about. Okay,
I do know a lot about him, but like I just always heard these stories of like Edison and the elephant, and like here's this person debuted this, but I didn't know it was all at the same place at the same time.
Yeah,
that I guess I never realized. And Rose O'Neal was there, just kind of hanging out with some nuns, walking around.
Some nuns.
Showing her art to like publishers, because it was like a convention except gigantic and for 2 years.
Oh, that sounds awful.
Awful.
Can you imagine us at a 2-year convention? Oh.
Day 2, I'm like, kill me. No. So I really do love conventions. It's like the week after that I don't love, because I'm like,
or the last day. By the time you get to the Sunday, you've fully lost your mind.
Yeah, fully.
It's not normal for a human being to engage with that many other human beings in that short of a period of time.
Over and over and over. Yeah.
However delightful it might be, it's just not, you shouldn't.
No one should do it.
Just don't do it.
No. Especially San Diego.
By the way, I was going to say, by the way, we're going to be at San Diego. We were talking about it. Like, do we plug it? We'll be at San Diego coming up in the end of July 24th through 28th. Anyway, continue, sorry.
We're going to be sharing a table, and there's going to be some fun podcast exclusive things for you to buy. So.
Ooh. Don't tell anyone.
Don't tell anybody. Okay, all right. So she's at the World's Fair. She's manages to like pass out a bunch of her portfolio and sell a bunch of her art to these publishers, which at the time didn't mean really anything. They were just like, yeah, we'll buy this because we'll keep it for some time. So it wasn't so much as like they're looking for an illustrator or they're looking for a certain thing. You would just, if you were good, they'd buy your stuff, and that's it. So that was what she'd made money doing.
They weren't like, hold on, let me check your Instagram to see how big your follower count is before I buy anything.
Oh, wow. Solid follower count. Yeah, before I decide how worth it you are, which is truly insane. Anyway, I can go off about that. Okay, so that was on her way to New York. And so she manages to sell things and make a bunch of connections. And she's unstoppably good. Like, you can see some of her stuff. I put it in the folder. But she's really good. And she's completely untrained. That's what freaks me out the most. She's like... Anyway, so she gets to New York, she lives with these nuns, and she starts getting work in Life magazine, Cosmopolitan, Good Housekeeping. And this is when she's in her early 20s, and she gets all these jobs. She keeps getting like into like the art scene and also the movie scene, because she's obviously hanging out with the Latham brothers, because and Otway, his brother Otway Latham, ends up marrying another artist named Natalie Dole. I can only assume that they were all in the same circle, because
I was going to say, I wonder what their dinner parties were like.
Oh my God.
These two sisters-in-law being like, all our husbands are idiot cokeheads.
They're horrible. Well,
but we draw stuff and they're entertaining, so that's why we're with them probably.
And they're kind of cute.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fun time here. So she gets all these jobs, and she manages in 1896. She sold a comic strip to this magazine called Truth, and they bought it and they published it, which made her the very first female cartoonist to ever be published in America.
What year is this again?
1896.
Oh wow!
Yeah, so it's early, and and the comic was like about like we'll put it up. It's like, I don't quite get it. Like, I think you had to be there like at
in
the
1896
time, in 1896 to understand it, and maybe I just didn't spend enough time looking at it, but that's like definitely what it was. I didn't spend any time looking at it. I read it once. So I'll put it up, and she sold this strip, and they're like, well, you should probably use your initials because you're a woman. And she was like, yeah, probably, no one will respect me. So she starts using R.C. O'Neill as her name. And so everyone thinks she's a man. I mean, she doesn't hide it, but like when these comics are published, they're like, oh, that's just a, and she ends up getting a job at a magazine called Puck. And Puck is the very first humor cartoon. Like, it was started by a cartoonist, and it was the very first humor magazine. So like Mad Magazine. That was
I was gonna say like
early,
like a Mad before, yeah.
And it was run by cartoonists, and there was just like comics and comics and comics, and it's
the
dope.
Usual gang of idiots. I love it.
It's for real. They just spent their time like lambasting politicians and making fun of the GOP, just like we do today. And love it.
I love it.
She did political cartoons. She was the only female cartoonist there for like 6 years. She also got all these like love letters because everyone thought she was a dude. And so she'd get like these locks of hair in envelopes and just laugh, be like, I'm a woman, suckers.
Also, who's writing love letters to illustrators? That's the first I've ever heard.
That's the thing you read. That's the thing you see. It's like, oh, there's somebody behind these funny comics that like, what else are you going to see? A movie? There's no real movies yet.
That's true.
Politicians? No. Actors? Kind of.
But
no, illustrators.
There's what is it called? There's like vaudeville and stuff going on.
There is,
You have to go see stage shows.
And those guys are like, everyone thinks they're sleazy.
Thinks.
Well, so were illustrators. They're sleazy, dude.
Don't trust people in the arts. We're disgusting.
The art scene was nuts. Like, they all.
Tell me.
Oh my gosh, I can't.
We can't talk about it on this podcast. Okay.
No. It was just a pansexual.
They took the Greek thing to heart, and they're like, we like Greek legends, and we also like insane giant Greek orgies where we're all covered in wine and all on drugs.
We draw each other, and then like everyone's kind of into each other. Anyway, and at this point, she's not only working as the only woman among a bunch of guys, but she says, "Screw corsets." She's dressing exactly how she wants. It's freaking everybody out. She says things like, "I've always been rebellious against harnesses and hairpins." She's this kind of like, but she's kind of untouchable because she's so good. So like, no one can say like, "Get out of here." They're like, "No, you're really good, and you sell magazines." So like, with that power, I'm going to do whatever I want. I'm going to say whatever I want, and it's kind of this freeing, awesome thing. Anyway, so around the same time she does that first comic is when she ends up marrying Gray Latham. Otway Latham had married Natalie, the other artist, like 6 months earlier. And I kind of see as like Otway's the younger one and Gray was probably like, oh shoot, he just got married. I got to do that too.
Yeah.
And
Dad's going to be pissed.
Dad's going to be pissed. And at this point, their dad is pissed at them because they are squandering their money, their talents. The panopticon thing they own, they're totally like ruining their lives and their dad's life. So like they're terrible. They're just bad. I can easily see them being like, hey, we're going to get our lives together. We're going to marry these girls and we're going to
They will fix us.
They're going to fix us. Dad's going to love us again. Maybe he'll give us money again because he cut them off. This is around the time he cut them off. Within 2 years, they're all out of the film industry. The dad moves to Mexico, and these two brothers are cut off from their dad. So,
oh no,
it's bad. So they all get married. I looked at some censuses. Okay, here's where I went insane. Okay, this is where I went truly off the rails, and this is off topic, but I can't help it. So I start looking at censuses because like I've said before, I love reading censuses. I find that they all live near each other in Greenwich Village, and they're living in a boarding house with a bunch of other young couples, which sounds awful and kind of fun at the same time.
Well, they're still pretty young, right? At this time, it's not like they're in their 40s.
No. Well, Gray is like nearing his 30s, which is like, come on, get it together,
Nearing his
Gray.
30s.
Yeah.
Listen, some of us are in our 40s and still haven't gotten it together.
Look, 40's the new 30. And so I couldn't figure out which years anyone divorced who. And so I got into like their records, like the divorce records from New York. And it looks like in 1902, this is like 4 years later, Rose files for divorce because a couple of years before, his dad had been like, no, you're cut off. And so he starts stealing Rose's paychecks.
Oh, so that's actually worse.
It's horrible. So
I was hoping it would be some insane, like crazy, like starts a prostitution ring or some like wily. I'm like, that's just lame, but somehow completely predictable.
It's so sad. And so he has a gambling habit, and his dad cut him off, and so he starts to intercept her paychecks and spends them and gambles all of her money away. And she's like, nope. Divorce. I'm divorcing you. Like the second she finds out, she's like, absolutely not. What do you like, you might be hot, but you're an idiot. Like, get away. So she divorces him, and I couldn't find any record of them actually like solidifying the divorce. So I think they were kind of still married. I'm not sure which year they divorced, but within a few years, Gray had died in a trolley accident.
Trolley.
A trolley car accident in Manhattan. I don't know. I couldn't find anything else about it. It would have required me to call the records department and have them send me a death certificate, which I was very doing. But I
think it would be cool to have Gray Latham's death certificate. I think that everybody on this show, or everybody who is on the Discord for this show, would probably love to see that, or to see it.
I would.
Maybe we can sell copies
of it. What
happened?
Oh my gosh! Yeah. And make money, the money he never was able to make.
Off his own death. Anyway, sorry. Continue.
Off his own trolley death.
Trolley death.
So Gray's dead in 1906. And at this time, Rose is just skyrocketing. She's so popular. Everybody loves her. They all know she's a woman now. And she's like unapologetically being this female cartoonist illustrator. So then I got... while I was at it, I started trying to figure out more about Otway and how he died, because he died the year after that. And
oh, no way. From a broken heart.
No. He died in a hotel. And I don't know what he was doing. Like usually when someone dies in like a hotel room, it's like... Anyway, they found him dead at the Waldorf in Manhattan.
Oh, that's a nice hotel.
It's a real nice hotel. So I don't know how he got in there. But his artist wife had divorced him a few years before, because she was like, I can imagine them both being like, these guys suck. Like
they finally wised up to it.
They finally wised up. They both divorced him. And then I got reading about Natalie, and I found this like whole drama. She like ditched him. She moved to Paris. I found her like immigration paper that she filled out like in her own handwriting, and how she explained that she used to be married to the Lathams, and that's why she has money, but she needs to like get her name removed so she can be her own person again, but like she used the name to get to Paris. It was this whole crazy. I fell into a deep hole.
I'm really impressed that you do this amount of research. I don't even know where you begin to do this kind of shit.
This is my hobby.
I'm not
I've been doing
good
this
at
with
actual
like family
research.
history. I like looking up records, and so I found her record, and I was like, "Oh, she went to Paris, and here's the boat record." And I compared the years, and I realized that she was in Paris the same year that her ex-husband died, and within 10 months, Natalie would also be dead. She ended up taking her own life about 10 months after her ex-husband died in the hotel. So it's just crazy to me to think about these four.
Did they have? Did any of them have kids or anything?
No, none of them had kids.
Okay.
It's just crazy to think about all those four all getting married in this like scene, this like art movie scene, and within 10 years, 3 out of the 4 of them are gone. So, back to Rose. Sorry for the downer. Rose then also goes to Paris. So she's also there at a different time. And she starts doing these, because she was kind of like, I got to do something new. So I'm going to go to Paris. I'm going to study under some artists like Rodin. She was like hanging out with Rodin. And she starts drawing these mythological inspired monsters. So she says she loves magic and she loves monsters. That's a quote from her. I love magic and monsters. She starts drawing these like strange, gigantic titans, like holding humans, caressing humans, and like these big faces bursting out of clouds, and like just some wacky crap.
C.C. Myers like sucking down concrete boba.
She's like, I see a vision of the future.
She
and
would
a
have
giant
loved
man
that.
is drinking concrete. I don't know what to do with this image. No, she would have. She draws like, I'll put some of these up. They're just really strange, and it deeply relate to it because, like, as a cartoonist, I'm like, yeah, I'll draw whatever garbage and crap, whatever anyone wants, anything to make people laugh. But really, I just want to draw something horrifying like this. Like, all I want is this. And so she loves these monsters. She loves portraying these monsters in like a nicer light. Like she drew this beautiful image of Medusa. And who was the slayed Medusa? I can't remember. Somebody slayed her and cut her head off in the myths. And she drew this picture of Medusa's head looking really peaceful, like she had finally been released from her curse. So like,
and
stuff
you
like
deeply
that.
relate to that. You're like, Medusa's like, I can finally be buried in the ground with all my snakes.
Well, it was just like, oh, I never thought of Medusa as anything but a monster. Anyway, but really it's like, or like she did this one of like all these townspeople like berating a satyr, or like a faun, and portrayed it as like who's the real monster. And she's just really obsessed with like
Changing
these
the
gentle
perspective.
monsters.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, these pieces didn't get any traction, of course, because people are the worst. And so
they
she goes
required
back
empathy,
to America. They required empathy and thought. And so she goes back to California and does what she's probably most well known for, which is creating these things called the Cupid dolls. Have you ever seen Cupid dolls?
The Cupid dolls. No, I don't know the Cupid dolls.
Cupid, they're like these little naked babies. Like they're Cupids, but like she.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen these. Yeah, these are. I didn't realize these are that old.
They're like 100 years old. So she's creating these cartoons of these little babies that like do silly little things, and people love them. They go nuts for them. Everyone wants Cupid dolls. Jell-O hires her to like do an ad using.
That's the second
Jell-O
Jell-O reference.
Yeah. Well, she did a bunch of. She was like their illustrator and like in-house illustrator. She would do all their advertising with Cupid dolls and Jell-O. And she was in like Good Housewife magazine and Cosmo again, but all with these like little Cupid dolls. And they went nuts, and she got like manufacturing deals. And so she was able to make them into actual dolls. Are you looking at them?
Yeah.
They're kind of creepy, right?
They're terrifying. I do remember these. Yes. In fact, I don't really
like
want to look
them.
at them right now.
Yeah, no, I don't love them. Like, and I don't know if she did either. But they made
she
her
created them nonetheless.
She created them, and they made her a millionaire. She became the highest paid female artist in America. So before Mickey Mouse, there was the Cupid doll. It was on everything. I don't think this part of her life is interesting because I don't like the Cupid dolls. But she gets intensely wealthy, like so wealthy. She starts thinking like, okay, what am I going to do? I'm going to buy a bunch of places to live. I'm going to go back and forth. I'm going to go all over the world, and I'm going to move back to New York. Because at this point, she had moved back to Missouri, where her dad had built a new farm.
Oh, right, her dad.
So now
Did her dad ever manage to stop working on the farm? He's like, I'm still working. I will get around to drawing at some point.
She gave them a ton of money. So he was able to build like a beautiful home in the Ozark Mountains, which they all fell in love with, and she ended up living there for the rest of her life. But in 1915, she's in New York, living with her sister Callista in Greenwich Village. And 1915 is when like the suffragette movement is in full swing. And so she starts thinking like, okay, yeah, I believe in women's rights, and these Cupid dolls are real popular. So I'm going to start making the Cupid dolls push for women's rights.
Yeah.
Women's vote.
Sponsored posts.
This is for real. She's like, I'm going to help, and I'll do whatever you guys want. So she draws these Cupid dolls being like crying and being like, give my mother the vote. Like totally taking like the equivalent of Mickey Mouse and being like,
I'm sure Jell-O
women
loved
deserve
that.
the vote. Oh, they didn't. And so she got really deeply into this, and so she would like walk around New York and like protest, and she would donate all of her money and time. And at one point she went to an anti-suffragette rally just to like see what they were talking about. And she was like, these guys suck. And then she's like, I'm going to an actual rally. And so she goes to a suffragette rally, and they're like, hey, can you take this microphone for a second? Or whatever it is, the little thing they talked into. Shoot, I don't know. It's not a microphone.
The piece of paper curled into a cone.
Yes. The cone.
Can you hold these hands for a second? Well, you can just, yeah, no problem. I'll hold my hand like this. And so he just walks off, handless.
Handless. Just like, those were the days. Anyway, so somebody's like, hey, will you keep the crowd like busy for a minute while I do something? And she's like, oh, okay. And so she gave her first and only suffragette speech. But she gets up there and just starts ripping apart these guys that she saw earlier. So she was like, they're up there talking about anti-suffragette, and she was getting so many laughs, and she was like, I had never felt happier in my life.
Oh, then when she's getting laughs.
Yeah, and so she was saying that like she was making the crowd laugh and like just ripping people apart, and everyone's like, yeah. And she said she walked away and walked home feeling like she was on top of the world because she knew she could make people laugh, and I related to that a lot because
that's nice.
I like that. I remember when I first made someone laugh, like a whole group of people, I was like, oh, I'm invincible. I'm never going to die. I'm going to live forever. I'm the most powerful person in the room. And then it quickly went away. But still, anyway, I do that story, right? Where like I tried to be funny right away after and no one laughed. And I was like, ouch. I learned that I loved it and that, anyway, doesn't matter.
It can also destroy you.
It can destroy me and has. They get the right to vote, and this is kind of where she just kind of like coasts a little bit, does what she wants, starts getting into sculpting, moves back to Missouri and this place called Bonnybrook that she like has gardens and sculptures and continues to like dress and do whatever she wants. She hosts huge parties with artists to the point where she loses all of her money doing that because she like.
All right. The Latham curse continues. She was infected by the Latham curse.
Well, her parties were like super cool. There were no
Still lost money at the end of the day.
Yeah, it was also the Depression.
Yeah, that'll do it.
Anyway, so she ended up dying in the 40s, and she was, I don't know, I love her so much because she's kind of the reason I'm here. Anyone's here. Like she paved the way for women, in an unapologetic way, and I'm grateful to her. And also she divorced that sad man. I totally skipped over her other marriage, but oh well, it's too late now. She divorced both of them.
Both of but she didn't marry the other Latham brother. She just married a different person altogether.
Imagine. So yeah, that's how I got on my huge Rose O'Neill thing, and also reading a bunch of censuses. So that's my tab.
That's an impressive kind of researching. That's not something I've ever gone into.
Oh, good.
No, it's why are you,
no,
you're like
it's
no,
it's a cruel mistress. I don't know what I'm saying. I love old records to the point where I get lost in them. So
well, lucky for us,
that's
now
Rose
we have
O'Neill.
A little bit more to fill in on the Latham mythology, if you will.
I'm back with more. I don't know.
To be continued, maybe.
Yeah. And everyone
cool.
go look at Rose O'Neil stuff. She's dope. She also looks awesome. And when I get old and retire, I want to wear flowy robes like her.
Sweet. So now we're at the point of the show where we will close our tabs.
Yeah.
Do you have any suggestions for fun sound effects?
Ooh.
What's something funny that she did?
Just money. She just got a lot of money. I don't know.
Throwing money at a tab until it closes?
No, we could do like a...
I mean, mine had a bunch of welding and like, construction sounds.
How about just
cheering? Last week we cheer
a tab
Yay,
to death.
It's getting closed.
How about
aggressive positivity?
We could just unalive the tab somehow.
I think it should be a truck stalling.
Okay.
That's maybe too specific.
15th gear.
Yeah,
or we could just do the regular old toilet flush that we originally wanted to do.
Yeah, we haven't done a toilet flush
beginning.
in a really long time. Yeah.
Let's just do a toilet flush.
All right, go ahead and count us down.
Yeah. No, I always count us down. It's your turn.
Do you? Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
3, 2, 1. Goodbye, Cece. All right, moving on to listener emails. Email number 1 is from Justin from a place called Florida.
Oh, that's where ants live.
Yeah. Hi, Kava and Hannah. My most recent tab-based rabbit hole started when my Mormon-raised partner casually mentioned her father drinking the coffee substitute Postum. Have you heard of this?
I'm more of a... Oh, yeah.
Postum?
I'm more of a...
Postum?
I'm Postum. I'm more of a Pero kind of gal.
I don't know what either of these things are. Explain to us what Postum is.
Postum is like it's like a barley. I mean, I know Pero is like made of barley, and it's like a hot like barley drink that it's kind of like a coffee replacement for people trying to like quit coffee or like people who don't drink it. It's good. I like it
because you need to pretend like you have coffee in your hand. Like
you need to have the same social traditions without drinking coffee. I don't know. I do know, actually. I don't know a lot about this, but I'm going to let you keep talking.
This led me to their absolute gem of a mascot, Mr. Coffee Nerves, a ne'er-do-well ghost-like villain who inspires coffee drinkers to act like unhinged maniacs.
I'm so excited about this.
The Phantom was featured in a series of comic strips in the late 30s that meld early 20th century misogyny with reefer madness levels of drug paranoia. Love the podcast. We listen every week. Justin from the decidedly un-Josie, Florida. I'm going to send you one of the comics that was on the link that they sent, which was...
Oh, I have them. Don't you worry.
Do you know these already?
I know these comics very well because they featured heavily in National Geographic from 1930. I have all those old National Geographics, and Mr. Coffee Nerves is like this devil. It's like a little devil in like a tight suit, and he's like... Hang on, let me see.
It's not just a regular suit. He's wearing a tuxedo with like a top hat, and he's all in white. So the whole world is like in color, and then he's this white ghost. But basically, the strip that I sent you is about this girl going on a date with a guy, and she's very irritable, and she's like, and then like every time she says something irritable, Mr. Coffee Nerves is just like egging her on. Being like, there you go, starting an argument. Tell him to pipe down. He may be rich, but if brains were money, he'd be in the poorhouse. Being sarcastic, is he? Tell him where he gets off. Basically, it's like my own brain talking to me. And then she comes home and she's like, oh my God, Billy Bob. Billy Bob didn't ask me to the big dance next month. And then her grandmother or something is like, dude, you should it's because you had coffee. That's why. Don't drink coffee. Drink Postum instead. And then she does. And then Billy Bob like basically proposes to her because every problem in her life was because she drank coffee.
Oh, wow. That sounds, I feel like I'm back in Utah, you know?
Yeah. It's fun stuff. It's a very interesting turn of the century comic that, yeah, it's fun stuff. You should take a look into it.
The one I just sent you, I have gotten so deep into Mr. Coffee Nerves before. This is a deep dive I've been on.
This is a different
I love
one.
Him. Yeah, so this is the one that I see in the National Geographic. He has like these little devil horns, and he's like, I'll find some.
John left for work without even kissing me. My looks don't attract him anymore. It's this woman crying on the couch. Peggy, my older sister is quite a beauty authority. Why not see her? Oh,
and
man.
Mr. Coffee Nerves is like, no. I don't know why.
He looks, I don't know. He looks like a Marvel character here. He looks like
He does.
It's like he looks like a Jack Kirby character of some sort.
Love Mr. Coffee Nerves. I'll send you some of the ones I have. Justin,
yeah, they're really
thank
fun.
you.
Yeah, thank you, Justin, from Decidedly Unjosie, Florida.
Mine is from RT from Bangkok, Thailand.
All right.
Look at
Thailand. That's a new one.
It's the title of the email was Producer of Netflix Show Poisoned. So they say, "Hi, Kaveh and Hannah. I'm a listener from Bangkok. Now tuning in from London. Been listening since musical splaining." Yeah?
Oh, wow. Thank you for continuing the journey to this new show.
Thanks. But I really enjoyed this show, especially your supportive, courteous banter. That's nice.
We do have supportive, courteous banter.
We do. My tab today came from last Saturday. I was binge watching a Netflix show called Three Body Problem from the creator of Game of Thrones. I don't think the show is good. I don't think the show is that good, TBH. But then I found this tab that is even crazier than the show itself. It's the Three Body Problem, producer poison death. And he says, they say, basically the executive producer of the show is a Chinese billionaire, Lin Chi, who is a fan of the original book series. Then he then approached the Game of Thrones duo to produce the show. But Lin Chi died before the show even came out because he was poisoned by one of his execs as a revenge plot for demoting them from the company.
Damn.
So crazy. So you might enjoy the show if you're a sci-fi nerd, but this tab is far more interesting to me. Stay Josie, RT. Yeah.
Do not demote people out of fear of being killed.
Yep. That's the
You hear that, Hannah? You better not demote me.
I already fired you on the Discord.
That's true. You did fire me. It was the first time I was ever fired. I was really excited.
You said, someone needs to fire me. And I was like, I will. Speaking of Discord, you guys can get on our Discord. It's really fun. Link in the show notes. Where else can they follow us?
Well, before they follow us, if they have tabs that they would like to submit, they can email us at 500opentabs@gmail.com. That's 500opentabs. Let us know about your tab. Send us the link. Give us a little blurby. Tell us where you're from so we can be really excited that someone from Thailand by way of London listened to us.
Yeah.
Or Florida, the Decidedly Unjosie Florida. I don't know why I'm fixating on that phrase, but I am.
I don't know. That's like stuck in your head.
Yeah. Additionally, they can follow us on, we're on YouTube where we have full video episodes. We just, well, not just by the time this one comes out, but we have since started a Patreon. There's exclusive stuff like nothing. We're actually just saying we're trying to get off the ground. So if you'd like to support us, please go ahead and do so. We would appreciate it. We also have the 500 Open Roads Google Maps thingamabob. I don't know what we call it. Google Maps.
500 Open Roads.
What I'm saying is it's like a shared map thing where you can find. It's a thing where you can find pinned on Google Maps where our different tabs have taken place and the corresponding episode to them. So we encourage you guys to take road trips and listen to that episode. And go see them and post us or tag us in photos if you take them, which you can do on Instagram. We're at 500 Open Tabs, and we're also at 500 Open Tabs on Twitter. Oh, that's a lot of different places to find us. Dear Lord, are we oversaturated? Are we everywhere? We should just be like in one place. We're not on TikTok, that's for sure.
Yeah, they made sure of that. Look, we came down from our Instagram tower and said, okay, we'll join. No, they don't want us.
TikTok's like, nope. Yep.
It feels nice to be hated by something I already hate, though. It's nice.
It's true. It's mutual. The feeling is mutual. Of course, I'm at PermaFriends on Instagram.
I'm at Hannah Hillam on everything. And buy my book and buy Kaveh's books.
Yeah, you got a book. Buy our books.
So you.
I also have books. So many books.
So many.
I guess we mentioned briefly, but we won't start properly plugging it. But we'll be in San Diego this summer. In July. So we'll have more information about that coming up. And I guess that's it. Oh, yeah. Thank you to Alyssa, our editor. I realized that
Yeah.
we stopped thanking her after the first few episodes because we forgot, but I'd like to bring that back because you didn't want to do it because you were like, what are we going to thank her for? And I was like, Hannah, how dare you?
How did you know? Okay. All right.
Thank you,
I
Alyssa.
said that in confidence to Alyssa. Just kidding. I don't know. Yeah, thank you, Alyssa. I truly don't understand. I don't know what we would do without you. That's all.
But it doesn't matter. What matters is that she does do it. So thank you for that. Thanks everybody for listening and continue to keep it Josie, everybody.
Keep it Josie. That's all.
Okay, bye.
Bye.